going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Game Time Discussions. I'm Cameron Selby, sitting here with Emery Cuzzy. Today, it's NFL season, baby. We are kicking off the NFL slate. We are week 1, Thursday night showdown, the season opener, Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs. The spread is -3 in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs. Implied total is 24.5 for Kansas City, 21.5 for Baltimore for a 46-point over-under. Fair weather, all that good stuff. Rematch of the AFC Championship. It should be a very, very exciting opener.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to see these games early. I always wonder if they're good to put on this first week when they have some playoff implications and you're getting a team, 4 months basically before playoffs actually start. But at the same time, we love it because we get to watch great football. Some of the things that we'll want to talk about during this, we're going to pull up the screen here in a second on the DraftKings slate and look at all the pricing. But we're going to keep going, and think about, injuries and first of all, and players that have to be added that just got on the team. I'm going to pull the screen up now so we can actually get onto it. But there are a couple guys that they haven't even added to this game yet, and that's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and this is a very unique beast because this is right after cuts, and it's the opener, and prices came out over 3 weeks ago,
right?
And so it's just been kind of sitting. But it's Monday as of this recording. It'll be coming out on Wednesday, and for the Thursday game, there's still no Samaje Perine. There's still no Juju Smith-Schuster, which that happened a couple of weeks ago. Very strange, but we're just going to have to adapt and let y'all know, take it with a grain of salt. We might be doing some fiddling if those do get added.
Right.
If not, then it'll just kind of make it easier, make us feel better about our lines.
Yeah, but it also writes off some of these players like Deneric Prince. We talked about him as being a guy that, might be the backup to Pacheco. He's not even on the team anymore.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference when now the backup, if Samaje Perine isn't added, is Carson Steele, who is $200, and that changes everything with your lineups. So
we'll go through some of the injury news. Looks like Hollywood Brown is already ruled out, which made it seem like it's going to be a multi-week injury, considering it came out a week prior.
Right.
CEH is going to miss as well. It sounds like there's been no sign of him for the last couple of weeks. Mark Andrews looks like he returned to practice last week after missing a couple weeks following a car accident. He should be playing, but there could be limitations, some to keep an eye on. And then another one, kind of lower tier, Keaton Mitchell. Obviously, he was put on the PUP list after tearing his ACL late last year. Those are the biggest injury news, and then we'll just kind of break down each team just to kind of go through the slate and see what sticks out to us.
Yeah, the 46.5 -3 to the Chiefs right now kind of tells us that the implied, is about 25 versus 21-22 for Baltimore. So we'll get started. I will start with the Baltimore Ravens. You got to talk about this guy first. He's the most expensive guy in the slate, Lamar Jackson. Just kind of looking at his stuff, he at any given time could go for 30 plus points, and then that week you have to have him in your lineup. Has 2 games in week 17 and then week 20, Miami and Houston for 39. So if you think that Lamar Jackson is going to score a rushing touchdown or any of that stuff, he definitely needs to be in your lineup. He's one of those guys that just can take over a game, and especially a slate like this.
Right. And so it's very interesting to talk about him because I think he's going to be a very popular play. Reigning MVP. Right. Everybody loves playing him as a rushing style quarterback. The problem is, I don't think his ceiling was really as consistent as people realized last year. He only had 5 games that went over 23 fantasy points. And when you're looking on a showdown slate that is filled with stars and you just want to get in as many skill players as possible, and then on top of that, 2 of the best kickers on the slate. On top of that, 2 very affordable defenses that this could turn into a lower scoring game. You need Lamar at 11-4 to have a 25-point game at the very least, plus minimum. 22. Well, in Kansas City last year, trailing, playing the whole game from behind, only finishing with 20.58. That's not going to get it done this slate. He's a guy that's probably not going to go for the 300-yard passing bonus. Maybe could be a threat for the rushing bonus, but I think Derrick Henry will also eat into that. So he's going to be a very interesting name to talk about. I'm not saying that he's a fade at all, but he's a guy that maybe we can work around if we just want to go with the one quarterback build.
Right, for sure. And then if you are going to take the Lamar track, either at captain or even in the flex, you will want some of his pass catchers. Click some of their names up here so that you can kind of see them. kind of just thinking about how you can build out these lines. Also, I'm gonna get Isaiah Likely in there too. So these are kind of the guys. You look at Zay Flowers. Here, I'll take Lamar off. We know who he is. Look at Zay Flowers, a guy that is the most expensive pass catcher that he has upside of 25 points, especially this year after having a really solid rookie year. Thing like to jump off the page, but he had 1,000 yards, so it's always good.
And even in the most recent game against Kansas City, he was the one true bright spot. If you did play the showdown slate that game, he went for 24.9 points, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. And he would have had a second touchdown had he not been the ball been punched out the 1 yard line, which prevented them from scoring again. So he would have been well over 30 points as a rookie. Was very, very impressive. He was one of the few bright spots for the Baltimore team as a whole during the AFC Championship game.
Right. And then the next guy, Mark Andrews, longtime staple, guy that does really good in the red zone. That's the biggest thing. You know, if you want to pick on a slate, you have to find the touchdowns. If Mark Andrews is healthy in the game and plays well, he is probably your most likely touchdown scorer reception wise out of everybody on this team. So he makes this slate very interesting with his injury or his unfortunate situation that had happened.
Right. So with him, this will be his first game back since breaking his ankle against Cincinnati on prime time. Essentially, he's going to be a very interesting name. On top of that, he hasn't practiced for most of the training camp after this accident that he had. When I first looked at these numbers, I was shocked how cheap he was. But now that I'm thinking about it more, I think he's going to be a very popular play that I don't know if it's really necessary to get to, which is going to be very, very interesting when we kind of talk through it, because you got to play and identify most players on each side. Usually in close games, you want to be at minimum a 4-2 build in favor of one team or the other.
Right.
5-1 builds, which basically means 5 players on one side, 1 on the other. That's the minimum of what you have to do on a slate like this. That's usually reserved for blowouts.
Right.
Games that doesn't have many pass catchers or skill players in general. Or you, like I said, purely if you think it'll be just a one-sided game.
Yeah.
That is not the case likely in this game. But yeah, that was an interesting name. It'll be a polarizing one to talk about throughout the rest of the week.
And then just their next couple receivers that are going to get on the field. Rashad Bateman is probably their next guy that could catch balls, but I'm not very excited about him this year. He randomly could get you 10 points, I guess. But at his current price, I don't think that's anywhere near value when you could get these kickers right underneath him. So I don't really get excited about him.
He didn't have a single game last year with more than 4 targets.
Yeah.
And he is 5,200. He is purely a tournament play.
Right.
He's going to be very, very low owned, but I just don't see much upside with him. But he could be a sneaky guy if there's a lot of these highly popular guys that are just not going to pan out or not return value.
Right.
He could be one that catches the 4 for 60, get 10 points, but because everybody else busted above him, he ends up working out in some way, shape, or form. But I just see it highly unlikely that he'll be in an optimal line.
I was going to say, he didn't even have a game of 10 fantasy points last season, and it's like projecting that this year with another year under Zay Flowers' belt is kind of hard for me. Nelson Aguilar is the other guy. He is, I guess, their third receiver, but he doesn't excite me either because truly Lamar isn't going to be trying to get him the ball, and he's like the 6th option in this offense to me.
What's interesting is I feel like Nelson Aguilar, he's a former first-round pick. He's been bouncing around team to team. He always seems to be a guy that shows up on showdown slates and just out of nowhere just pops off. So I don't want to rule him out because of that. He has a knack for those kinds of things, but it is very interesting. Again, a lot of these guys on Baltimore, it's really hard to get to or have much confidence in just because of the price that they're at. Right. One guy we were talking about, though, Isaiah Likely, 2,600. They're going to be running a lot more 2 tight end sets than you even realize. And he was a top 5 fantasy tight end once Mark Andrews went down. He truly did break out, and he's had a fantastic offseason so far. 600 is very, very cheap, and it's going to be really easy to put him in lines.
I think most people are going to see him as a tournament play, while we're going to see him more as a cash play, because at the same time, like 2,600, you don't basically have any risk there, and we expect him to. If you look at these like setups, like he's got 11, 11, 18 against KC, he had 3.6, but it was a 10-7 game. But when Mark Andrews is out, 18, 19, 18, like he's good. He's very good at football. The problem is he also has floor games, as you can see. But if he is going to play as much as we expect him to, he will probably pay off with it 3 targets a minute. Like if he has 3 targets, we're very happy.
Right.
So
yeah, and then 2 more to bring up for Baltimore. Then we'll move over to Kansas City. Obviously, the new popular guy, Derrick Henry, King Henry, is now a Baltimore Raven. 9,000 is a very steep price. Could have been worse, but it's just really hard to even look and see him as a huge guy. I think it's name value only.
yeah,
But again, if you think he's going to run all over, he's a guy that can have that bonus upside. He has touchdown upside, but he has no pass catching upside.
yeah. With Derrick Henry, I think it's all about his touchdowns, and if he can score in this game, like he will be optimal.
Mhm.
But the problem is Lamar Jackson runs the ball. Kansas City actually is pretty stout against the run. So I just have a hard time believing that he will not be optimal in any way unless he has 2 touchdowns, in my opinion.
I see him in a similar role, and this is going to be a very unpopular take, but similar to David Montgomery.
Right.
Very rich version of him, but just guy, no passing work. He could have multi-touchdown upside, but he's likely going to have an underwhelming amount of 100-yard games. So typically you're going to have the 16 carries, 80 yards, and a score. That's going to be your, upside for him.
Right.
And if you got to spend 9,000 for somebody that's upside is about 15 points, that's not really what we're really looking for on a slate like this that has so many options.
Yeah, one more thing about Derrick Henry is the differences between him and David Montgomery are, of course, Jahmyr Gibbs is a better running back than Justice Hill, but Jared Goff doesn't take away from David Montgomery. When it's inside the 3, we know who's getting it. In this offense, I don't know who's getting it yet. That's the biggest thing to me. So.
Yeah, and then one more name before we switch over to Kansas City. Obviously, Justice Hill is by the default the primary backup. He is the pass catching back. The reason he's relevant, even at 44, that doesn't seem like something that you're interested in doing. But look at the targets the final 4 weeks: 5 targets, 64 yards; 10 targets, 26 yards; 2 for 11, but then 7 targets for 34 yards in the AFC Championship game. He has a lot of upside as a PPR back, and on this site specifically, he's in the player pool because of that.
Yeah, and also he doesn't have to do that much to pay off at 4,400. That's a big thing. You have to find value, especially on a slate where you want to pay up for the Patrick Mahomes, the Travis Kelce's, the Isaiah Pacheco's, the Lamar Jacksons. Like you have to find that.
Basically, he's smack dab in the middle of both kickers and both defenses.
Right.
So essentially, put those 5 in a pool together, and if you think he can outscore any of those, all of those 5, or all the other 4, rather, he's worth a look for sure.
Absolutely. And so that's the last guy. Of course, Justin Tucker's always on the list.
Yes.
If you think it's going to be a game where he gets 2 field goals, absolutely play him. All kickers are always viable, but just they come with a grain of salt because if it's only touchdowns, you're not going to get the upside that you want out of them. Going to the KC game. Let me move on over. Let's start with the Patrick Mahomes. He's obviously the most pivotal player on this slate. If he does well, that also means that all his receivers do well.
Mm-hmm.
And we really want to get as much of Patrick Mahomes and his guys as we can, because that means that that's how you're going to take down tournaments.
Yeah, with this game, they're favored by 3,
Mhm.
but it's actually plus money to bet their way in terms of the spread. So a lot of money is going in on Baltimore.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of popular names that people are going to go to. Derrick Henry with his debut with the Ravens, Mark Andrews being so cheap and reasonable, Lamar Jackson being the MVP. So that's going to leave him as a weird one that I think he might actually be lower owned than people think about. He's coming off his career worst year from a fantasy perspective, and we truly think he's our QB2 overall this season. He's going to get back to his ceiling performance where he's back to rivaling 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns,
Right.
etc. And it's going to very much start with this. And it's a very clear-cut path to who's going to get the touches this year. Whereas before, last year, it was just, Tony and Sky Moore and Justin Watson, they're just all splitting snaps and reps and stuff like that. This year, he's got the 3 receiver set that you know what's going to be coming out. Maybe the third receiver is a little murky because Hollywood Brown's out, so maybe Justin Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster, etc. are going to be splitting those reps. However, target wise, I think is very clear and concise. The big four for Kansas City.
Right. So Patrick Mahomes is actually pretty easy. If you want Patrick Mahomes, you also want all the guys we just talked about. You look at Kelsey, bang. You look at Hollywood Brown is doubtful, like you said. He didn't make PUP lists, so that means they expect him to play before week 4, which is actually good for him because I thought he was going to be on IR. Rashee Rice, Worthy, who is very reasonable priced. Justin Watson, 3,200 down here. And I guess Sky Moore is probably the next guy, Miko Hardman. But like we said, Noah Gray's an option. But don't forget Juju's going to be on the team. So this is the guys that we want to look at.
And then with the cheap guys, as a reminder, Juju Smith-Schuster, Samaje Perine, 2 key names to watch. If either of them are 1,000 or below, they're in the pool. Because when you have 1,000 or below and you're trying to get a double quarterback build or just spend up on all the elite options, it's reasonable to go way, way down because all you need is 1 catch for 10 yards and they return value.
Absolutely.
You just need 2x.
Yep.
So if any of those guys, Juju or Samaje, are that cheap, they are included in this as well. Guys like Deneric Prince, cut from the team. Kadarius Toney is listed, cut from the team. Justin Ross, cut for the team.
Irv is cut, I think.
Irv Smith is cut as well. So it's kind of thinned out, even though there's a plethora of names out there. CEH, we know, is likely not going to play.
Yeah.
So it's very clear and concise where you're going to go. It just depends on how you want to get there.
Right. And so I like getting to these guys more than anybody. One of the guys that I'm probably not going to get to as much as the field because he is going to be one of the highest owned players, in my opinion, is Travis Kelce. He has the upside to do 32 points a game, or 32 points in this game. That's not a problem. We know that. He had 8 catches for like 50 yards and 4 touchdowns on a slate one time like this, and he broke it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that we don't think he can. It's more so there are a lot of guys around him that I'd rather get to. And pricing made it where he could end up being one of my lower owned guys comparative to the field.
Right. Yeah. So with him, like Em said perfectly, he has higher upside than any other skill player on the slate. Problem is the floor. I wonder, is it worth spending all the way up when Rashee Rice, without Hollywood Brown in there, and then Xavier Worthy as a rookie who probably won't get more than 6-7 targets, but he could be efficient with those targets.
Right.
Rashee Rice was getting 10 targets a game to end the season, and there's no suspension coming, at least in this slate. So you might as well spend 2,000 less to get him. He's a very reasonable captain as well. You do need to mention captain once again if you're new and unfamiliar with this type of lineup construction and build. Captain, you spend a time and a half or 1.5x what the salary is, but you get 1.5 the return. Typically, you want the highest upside receiver or tight end or running back, and if you can spend 2,000 less and even put him in the captain, that just has even more value.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of something that I'm thinking about when I'm building lines this week.
Yep. And then talking about Rashee Rice, he went 105 for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. Very solid numbers. Some of the games that you can look at, he had a 30-point game. He had a 20-point game, 24-point game. He is going to be what I would expect to be the number one option for receivers across the board. That includes all the Baltimore receivers, just for guys that want to get as much of this Kansas City offense, of course. There's just a lot of upside. There's just so much upside on this Kansas City side that you can build it in so many different ways. And trying to find the touchdown is kind of the way I'm thinking about it,
Right.
So
let's get into some of our kind of bold takes. Take a stand on a guy. I'm going to ask you, who is your one guy that you think you're going to be way overweight to the field, or just somebody that you don't think you can avoid on this slate?
So overweight, we didn't really talk about the running back for City.
Real quick, Isaiah Pacheco, very popular name.
Yeah.
He's the guy that jumped out, and he's vaulted up all kinds of draft rankings this summer. He's basically a one-man show. Problem is they did sign Samaje Perine, and Kansas City has prioritized pass-catching running backs in the Andy Reid era. Look at Jarrett McKinnon having 9 receiving touchdowns in Patrick Mahomes' most recent MVP season, 2022. Isaiah Pacheco has some upside as a receiving back, but last year, Jarrett McKinnon was hurt. CEH wasn't really providing much in there.
Right.
Well, if Samaje Perine specializes in that, that's going to eat into that, and maybe that kind of lowers Pacheco's ceiling, which he was consistently getting you 14.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, if you're going to spend up especially if you're trying to put him in as a captain or something of that nature, you need 20-point upside.
Right.
And is he going to be able to provide that on the slate? I'm just not sure yet.
Right. And so also I will say, with Samaje Perine coming in, like getting a Samaje Perine and a Isaiah Pacheco and doing that stuff is a really good way to be different and be tournament different. Just so like y'all know how you have to think about these slates, because you only have so many players on this list. So Cam is like, I'm not really in on Isaiah Pacheco because he doesn't have the upside as a receiver. Well, why not get both and see if both of them can do, because at Samaje Perine's price, you're going to be able to do that. If Isaiah Pacheco scores the 2 touchdowns and you get both, say Samaje had 4 targets, you're very happy.
Exactly.
So.
Like with these slates, NFL is one of those certain slates that you don't really need to worry about on the main slate leaving remainder.
Right.
Well, leaving remainder, doing stuff like doubling up on a position that 85% of the field is not going to do is something perfectly to get different on your lines. If you're going to go with, most people are going to go Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely. If you play both,
yeah.
very few people are going to do that. Like you said, Pacheco and Perine, not many people are going to play both kickers, both defenses. There's people that are going to play one or the other, but rarely are going to play both. You look at the Super Bowl last year, both kickers were the optimal line of the Super Bowl.
Crazy. It's crazy.
And, that'll happen on occasion, especially on slates like these, where it's just like, well, yeah, both of these offenses are really good, but their defenses are good enough to where they can bend, not break, and each kicker is capable of getting 3 field goals.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it's a lower scoring slate. Each kicker has 12 points. That's how it works.
One thing I look at on these slates is actually red zone percentages. If you're able to score in the red zone and if the defense is normally able to hold in the red zone, I think those are big. But yeah, so we were talking about fades, people you're willing to fade and people that we're going to pick as our mains. I will let you go first on your biggest fade on this slate.
The biggest fade on this slate for me is going to be Derrick Henry. Just 9,000. It seems very reasonable, but I just think that he's going to be flirting with or exceeding 50% ownership, and I just don't want any part of that. I just don't expect him to have much work in the passing game, and if the only way that he's going to beat me and truly beat me is going for 2 touchdowns, I'm going to take that chance on a game that I think actually might be lower scoring than people think.
Right. So I'll go next. My biggest fade, and it's actually going to be super controversial, but I think it kind of puts me in a place where if I do fade this player, I have so much ownership deflection.
Right.
That is Mark Andrews. I'm going to be fading Mark Andrews.
It's a fun one.
I really thought about Travis Kelce as being my main fade, but I think Mark Andrews is a fade that I can be like, the injury scares me. Isaiah Likely scares me. The rushing offense scares me. And if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's not optimal in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If you put him in the captain spot, you need that touchdown badly. So
yeah, when I'm looking at these prices, him being 6,400, he might be a top 3 captain in terms of ownership. And so, yeah, either fading or being way underweight to him is definitely a good way to go and get different on this slate. Yeah, and so we'll piggyback off of that. Let's go with our biggest stand. Who are you going to be overweight to the field? Who's somebody that is not going to leave you without being in your line?
So I think it's actually probably a cop-out, but it's a guy that I think is just too cheap on this slate, and that's Xavier Worthy. And I know the other guy you were going to think was, if I'm fading Mark Andrews, go Isaiah Likely. But Xavier Worthy at 5,800 is he is a top 3 pass catcher for Patrick Mahomes, no matter what. And without Hollywood Brown there are more targets to go around. So say with Hollywood Brown there, he goes for 5 targets. Without him, say he goes for 7. Well, that difference is so big for a $5,800 player with the explosiveness that he has, ability to take the ball from, point A to point B and score a touchdown for 40 yards. He honestly doesn't need 7 targets at that point, but I'm going to take him because after that, it makes it even that much better. He is my guy that I don't think I'm going to leave with. And I think it's also I think most people are going to go Rashee Rice, which is fine. I'm on the Rashee Rice train here in this game, but Xavier Worthy has more upside possibly to me, and we haven't seen him play, so I think people have less ownership on him naturally.
Right. So if I'm going to say mine, who's going to leave my lineup, I would say Isaiah Likely as well. He might be in a lineup or two of ours that we're about to build, The only thing is, if Juju and or Samaje are added to the slate and they are even cheaper, that opens it up to where I don't think you need to double punt in this slate. So if you just wanted, I want one line of him, one line of him, one line of him, you'll be fine.
Right.
So I don't think he's a must yet. However, my mind would change if we know that they are not going to be on the slate and he is truly the best value on the slate, in my opinion, right now. I'm going to go with the even bigger cop-out answer and just say Rashee Rice is my guy that you're not going to leave without. 7,600 for your wide receiver one is just way too cheap. He's going to be 8 to 10 targets. He has touchdown upside. Red zone percentage was crazy efficient last year for him. And he is probably my favorite captain. I don't know in terms of being the most popular captain who's going to be on this slate. But even if it is going to be somebody like him, it's something that I'm willing to eat because I know exactly how I want to construct this slate.
Right. And if you look at these guys, like we're talking about captains, we're about to talk about tournament plays, but we know that these top 5, 6 guys are all going to be very highly owned. And we're not playing Derrick Henry. You said you're not playing him. I talked about being underweight to Travis Kelce. Already taking 2 of those guys out and changing it up to Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, I feel more comfortable that we're not going to be like the field as much as possible. Your tournament play. Tell me who it is. Don't cheat. Don't say my guy.
It's not a guy, it's a team. It's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs defense at $3,600. I just think that this game is going to be lower scoring than people realize. I think Baltimore is probably going to struggle and not hit 21 points in defense. When it's scoring on DraftKings, you get bonus point for being 20 points or less that you allow. If you look at their AFC Championship game, this was in Baltimore. It was 17 to 10. It was a low scoring game. They had 4 sacks, 3 takeaways, ended up with 14 fantasy points. And they were a team that, I wish we were recording back then because that was the defense that I was pushing AFC Championship weekend. And I'm just going to run it back. Again, I don't think that many people are going to play defenses. I think the kickers will be more popular, and it makes sense to do so. And maybe you even want to add both of them. But I don't think many people are going to play either defense, but Kansas City might be even lower owned, and they're cheaper.
I like that a lot. They're a defense that if you were to get 25% of them and quarter of your lines, you're way over the field. Right. You're like I think 3xing the field, I feel like, in my personal opinion.
They'll be about 15 to 17% on large field tournaments.
Yes.
And could be even lower than that if you're going to play small contests, which we always recommend if you're going to be an entry or you're a new player because it helps you build your bankroll. You don't got to compete with 150 max that people just have a bunch of capital that can just throw randomizers in there. If it's just one lineup that you're going to build and you're going to build something different, Kansas City, I think, is a really interesting way to go.
Okay, so it's my turn. All right, and I think mine is a perfect pivot. It is Justice Hill. Justice Hill with the receiving upside from last year. Like we said, Derrick Henry's not going to get any of it. The third down back is Justice Hill every time. If he gets 4, say 5 targets and somehow squeaks in a touchdown, Justice Hill just became the most pivotal player on the slate. These types of numbers where you get 10 targets is just insanity. Of course, he only caught 3 of them, but we'll just blame Lamar Jackson on that one. So like Justice Hill to me, he's not going to get any rushing work, as you can see. 3. This is with guys that aren't nearly as good as Derrick Henry. But his receiving game work makes me excited to put him as my tournament play.
What's going to be fun about him is he's not going to be seen one time until the important time.
Right.
So 2-minute drill, he's going to be the only back in there. When it comes to if Baltimore's trailing with 5, 6, 7 minutes to go and they need to score more efficiently, like remember they were down basically 2 scores the entire AFC Championship game and we're just constantly playing in hurry up and whatnot. Yep. He was the guy on the field. So essentially, Justice Hill, I think, will be more likely than not to be that guy in the backfield, not Derrick Henry in those situations. And he may not play more than 30% of the snaps.
Fine.
But all of his work will be coming in those stretches. You get 4 targets, 3 receptions for 30-something yards. Everything else, chump change from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we're going to talk about how we see this game going. And it also in my opinion, builds a good way for Justice Hill at the end of this because of the fact that we probably both, I don't know. I'm actually going to see. How do you feel this game goes before I say anything?
Yeah, so like I said, I think this is a lower scoring game than people think and realize. But actually, my first thought that came to mind when I thought of this slate, it was 24-20 Kansas City. And that was before a line came out. That was before anything. I think it's just lower scoring. Lo and behold, it's kind of right where the spread is at 44 or 46, and that would be a 44 total. And then, I think both kickers are viable. Whichever one you have more confidence in taking 2 field goals and making them, I think is a good way to go. My side would be Justin Tucker on this one. But yeah, that's kind of how I view this game playing out. Do you feel the same?
Originally we had talked about it when we went to Louisiana. I think I've changed how I felt about it more and more as the games got closer. I'm seeing 27-17 the city. And that's very much so because I just think, like you said, I actually do enjoy their defense. I don't think the Ravens score more than 21, 24 points. Like, that doesn't feel like a real, it's an option, of course, because they have explosive players, but like, I don't have a good feeling in that way. I feel like it's lower for them. But I think KC does make those plays. They do have big players. And if they have turnovers, I'm not that worried because they're going to just come back out on the field and still sling it. Things like that, and I just feel KC could score 27 points for sure, which will help us depend on how we create our rosters and stuff like that. So
yeah. So again, now we'll go ahead and we'll build 3 lines. I guess I'll go ahead and volunteer myself to start. This is the line that I've come up with the story that I've built with this game.
Mhm.
So we're gonna go Rasheed Rice at captain.
Where are you? Oh, not cap. I'm sorry. All right, Rasheed Rice, cap. Bang.
All right, double quarterback.
Okay, perfect. Something that I will say, guys, always, if you're going to put a receiver at the captain spot, please stack him with your quarterback, his quarterback that is on the team.
It doesn't have to be correlated 100% to a T, but at least a little bit. You can't just say Rasheed Rice and then just fade Mahomes.
Yeah, it doesn't work
make any
that way.
sense. He's not going to score 20 points while Mahomes scores 12.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That just rarely is ever going to happen in that regard. So yeah, I highly recommend that. Like Em said, we're going to go ahead and put in Isaiah Pacheco as well. We'll just kind of rely on getting a couple receptions, but punching a touchdown. He's actually plus money or a pepper, whatever demon, whatever you want to call it, depending on the site that you use for props to score.
Right.
That's a very interesting number in my eyes, and we'll kind of talk about later in the week if we have any kind of interesting things like that. Yeah, that was something I found was interesting.
Okay.
We're also going to put in Xavier Worthy, and then we'll wrap it up, and we'll put in Isaiah Likely as the last man in.
Yeah, I really like it. It's going to be where's Isaiah? There you are. It's a gamble because I think it's actually going to be, it's a very good cash line is what I look at. It's got $0 left remainder. This is a type of line that, I think will be duped, but at the same time, it's perfectly correlated. You have everything you need as in a line. I think it's really pretty. Yeah, I have no complaints. I think it's a great line.
All right. So yeah, we'll turn it over to you. You are a Capitan now. Yep. Let's see what you can build out.
Funny enough, our lines are pretty similar. So not surprising, I guess. But for my captain, where is captain? It's going to be Xavier Worthy. We talked about our favorite guys. Obviously, they kind of go together. I want to put Patrick Mahomes in my line, of course, because he is the quarterback. We're going to take Lamar Jackson. He is our, hopeful for rushing upside and everything in that way. The next guy is I'm going to get Zay Flowers because I'm not going Mark Andrews. So I still want one of the receivers or 2 of the receivers. We'll talk about that in a second for this team. I have a good amount of money left over right now, but I'm going to go down and I'm going to grab the guy that we keep saying his name. Where is 2600? I can't see. Bang. Okay. And that leaves me with almost 9,000 left over. That means I can't get Derrick Henry. But just like you, I get to decide between Rasheed Rice and Isaiah Pacheco. And I actually keep going back and forth on this. I think both are awesome options. I went Isaiah Pacheco in my original build, leaving 500. But if you wanted to say, hey, I don't think Isaiah Pacheco scores, I think Rasheed Rice gets the 1-yard touchdown on the out route. Bang. $1,300 left over. Lineup is mostly is tournament feel. You have all the upside in you. This game, if this works out, it should be like a 50-point game.
Right.
And you want
that's a fantastic build. I mean, if you think about it, the only differences are we have a different receiver captain, different instead of Isaiah Pacheco, it's Zay Flowers.
right.
And essentially the fun part is Rashee Rice is eligible to be captain based on the remainder that you can afford. You're getting very, very different by going with the other guy and still doing the same lineup. You are not going to be duped at all, which is going to be great on a tournament that is just going to be very, very high amount of people playing
Right.
for the first game of the season.
Exactly. We're actually going to do one more line. We have not scripted this line. It's going to be our tournament line. So we should probably just go with our tournament plays, right?
This is the rules I'm going to set, and then I'm going to let you choose the captain.
Perfect.
It's going to include Kansas City defense.
Yes.
It's going to include Justice Hill.
Right.
And it's not going to include Lamar Jackson.
Justice Hill. Let's get the Kansas City defense in there. I'm going to have so much extra money.
No, it's going to be wonderful.
Okay. So a tournament line. So I think I want my captain to still be, it's not going to have Lamar. So I'm going to go Rashee Rice at cap.
Okay.
Because I think that is really good for the pricing.
All right.
And then I'll let you get a guy.
So I think this is going to be
Patrick Mahomes by default, maybe.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes by default. We're not going to double fade quarterback. I rarely ever do that unless it's Mason Rudolph and insert backup quarterback here.
Right.
I think we need to put in Travis Kelce as well. He's not somebody that we're fading, but it's somebody that we're just not getting to based on price. So putting him in there, making sure we're going to have plenty of remainder. It doesn't matter what the player is because we can afford every single person other than Lamar the rest of the way for the last guy.
Well, this makes it interesting because do I want to do a 4-2 or a 5-1? And that is a big question in this game because if I go 5-1, it actually kind of fits my prerogative in the 27-17 late or lower. Right. I'm actually okay with doing that. I think that's a very interesting thing to do. There's a guy that I think benefits the most out of if that game does get kind of a blowout type of way, and that is Isaiah Pacheco. Because Isaiah Pacheco, if we are seeing a blowout, Samaje Perine's not on the field, first off. We don't want him. But second off, with Isaiah Pacheco and the correlation with the Chiefs defense and the fact that if they're up by so much, he's rushing the ball, I really think that this is a good way to build a tournament line that is so different, $2,200 remainder. You could even probably put Kelce up there as the captain and still have, remainder.
Yeah, I think this is a very fun line. Even if you wanted to go with somebody that you said was your biggest must play, being Xavier
all the way
Worthy,
down to Xavier Worthy,
you can take out Chiefs defense and put him in. It's going to be more Duke, but you can fit it in if you want to. With this line, any other guy that you can fit in the captain if you wanted to go with Kelce instead or Pacheco instead or even Mahomes. Typically, quarterback, we don't really recommend doing that captain to force it in.
Right.
But if organically comes in, you're going to have remainder anyway. I think it's more than okay. And then Mahomes is one of those guys that is one of the few exceptions to that rule.
Right. And another thing I will say is like on this slate, we build these lines based on what the storyline we think. If y'all think that Baltimore is going to win, and I will more than willingly put a Baltimore line together for y'all, just so y'all can see it. If y'all think Baltimore is going to win and you think, hey, Zay Flowers is going to have a big game, okay, we'll put Zay Flowers in at the captain spot. Get Lamar. Go with a, cheaper, like
chalky Mark Andrews.
Yeah, Mark Andrews. And then build your line from here with, what do you got? 20,000? Say you really, I told you, Xavier Worthy. You go down here and you get Justin Tucker because you're like, hey, I like Baltimore a lot. And now you're left with 9,400. Shoot, Travis Kelce. Oh, sorry. So close. Yeah. 90, but if say you don't want Justin Tucker, say you go Justice Hill because you didn't get Derrick Henry. Now you can get this guy and Justice Hill, and you have a Baltimore line.
Great 4-2.
You have a Baltimore line that you're like, hey, I think Baltimore is going to win. There's my script. You have $400 left over. You're not duped consistently. I think that is a reasonable thing to do. And so just make sure y'all know, like, we're building based on what we think how the game will go. We're not going to always agree.
And we happen to agree with us.
Yeah, we happen to agree today, but just write the story and build it that way. So.
All right, yeah, and then one more thing before we get out of here, we're going to put our favorite Thursday Night Football props of the week. This is Underdog Prize Picks plays that we have come out with. Unfortunately, these lines have been out for weeks, so some have been pumped up. there's two numbers in particular for guys that we just don't get why they have not been pumped up.
Right.
And so I'm going to go first. This is Rashee Rice over 60.5, or if you were on PrizePicks, 61.5 receiving yards.
Oh, on underdog. I apologize.
Either way, it doesn't matter. It is basically the same price. Rashee Rice, wide receiver 1, he should be getting 8 to 10 targets again. Essentially, he just has such volume to go around, and I just don't see a way that he goes under this line. His prop for receptions is 6.5, I believe. So if you're thinking that he will go over that, he won't go over that without also getting the receiving yards.
Here we go. Sorry, my
5.5
decided to slow down a little bit, but yeah, 61.5 here. I completely agree on both PrizePicks and underdog. There's a guy that I will talk about, but first, before we do that, make sure y'all, if y'all want more picks from us, we're going to be putting stuff in our Discord as much as possible. Please get in the Discord. We posted it on Instagram this weekend in college football. I hit a 4-pick, Cam hit a 3-pick. I took the Jalen Milroe half a yard for passing to make that a 4-pick. But we are hitting picks in that as much as we can. We're posting winners and everything. Make sure y'all get in there. Don't miss out on those, because we will have way more than what's we're going to put into these videos on there. And I don't want y'all to think that these are our only picks. These are just our most confident picks.
Yeah, and then also right now, it's all free content. This is our first trial year. We're just getting things going. Everything's free. We're doing free content for you guys, so we're going to have plenty more to offer. And just get in there, and we just want to interact. You don't have to tell us if you don't want to.
Right.
If you do and it hits, that's awesome. We're going to celebrate together. But if you don't and you go a different route, or you see something that we don't like, let us know, and we might tell it as well, and then we'll shout you out if you even give one of the great calls of the weekend.
Exactly. And then the next pick for me, I'm actually going to go over to underdog because it's cheaper on underdog right now. It is Xavier Worthy. We've been talking about him. He was my favorite guy. Hopefully, there it goes. Right now, so he has his season props up, of course, but right now he's at 44.5 receiving yards on underdog, while he's at 46.5 on PrizePicks. I just think that's too low. I just don't get it. He was at 43.5. I got in on that when these net lines came out. He's only gone up a yard. I just don't know why.
And that is after the Marquise Brown being ruled out.
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense. So that is a line that I really, really like. That would be my definite play of the week for this game. So make sure you get in on that. Hopefully it hasn't moved. We are recording on Monday because it's Labor Day. We get the extra day off. We're posting this on Wednesday. Hopefully this hasn't gone anywhere. But that is my favorite pick by far.
Yeah, and then it is week 1, so there are discounts and promos and all that stuff on both sides coming out. Right now, you can still get that Caleb Williams free square on PrizePicks. It is up to $25 you can play with. You can play whatever you want with it. They should be coming out with more promos this week, in addition to PrizePicks having Taco Tuesday, where they have discounts for players, and then also on Friday, where they have a risk-free play. On Underdog, they have a week of just promos every single day. Today, well, first thing, there's still a Travis Kelce free square that you need to spend by this Thursday.
Please.
It's $10. Today, it's 10% boost on your pick. So you put a 3-pick for $10, and that's a $60 return normally. Boom, now it's $65. It just jumps up. You can use that 3 separate times. Tomorrow's there's going to be stuff. There's going to be another free square this week. There's a mystery prize on Friday, and then there's going to be discounts on Saturday, and then another free square for Dak Prescott on Sunday. Underdog is just giving out free money. You need to take advantage while you can, because we certainly will be.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be posting, like I said, in the Discord as much as possible. We'll be reminding you of those free squares. Today is called More Money Mondays. It's 3 boosts, but you won't see that on Wednesday, though. Like Cam said, they have a thing called Vulture Protection. Thursday's 30% off, mystery promos, and all kinds of cool stuff. So don't miss out. It's not if you're going to play PrizePicks, if you're going to play Underdog, why not take advantage of the things they're going to give you for free?
Exactly. And then if you haven't signed up yet and you want to start participating, and you don't even have to do a ton, but Underdog and PrizePicks both offer first-time deposit matches. So Underdog right now can deposit match. I think they're doing up to $200 now. So you put in $200, they'll give you $200. Say you don't want to do that, put in $25, they'll give you $25. They're matching what you put in just to start and give you some play money to work around with. And you can use that money to be using towards all these boosts and discounts and stuff, which is fantastic. its marketing and value and all that stuff. It's trying
Right.
to get you excited about this new platform. It's very exciting. If you haven't signed up, we will have links in our description below that
Yes.
you can sign and get that deposit match, like we said.
Price Picks also too though. I was gonna say Price Picks is doing if you play a $5 lineup after signing up, if you play a $5 lineup, you get $50 on that lineup. So 5 for 50 is pretty good deal. You can also obviously play more. We will say that, Underdog right now obviously has the better lines, currently better lines overall. They're lower, they're a little bit softer, which is really good for us. And then they also have the better promos right now. We love Underdog. We love Prize Picks. We're going to be playing both, and we're going to be taking the best numbers from either. If you get in the Discord, you're going to see them all. If you don't, I'm sorry. You're only going to see these. So, but
see
yeah,
what it is. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe. Watch out for our main first look that we'll be recording and sending out pretty shortly. And then on Sundays, every Sunday, we will be live streaming every Sunday morning, talking about main slates, Thursday, Monday, showdown slates, primetime slates, afternoon, early only. It doesn't matter. We're doing it all. DraftKings Palooza, whatever you want to call it. We're playing every single thing. We like to not just focus on one contest, but just play around everywhere. We want to spread the love, spread the money, spread the investment.
yes.
And we're going to prosper in many ways. We've been doing this for many years and been very good at it.
We've been talking about a name, trying to figure out what to call it, and I don't hate that. Let's do it. No, but yeah, we're gonna give y'all as much information as we can. Like we said, it's our first year, it's our trial year, but at the same time, we are still going to be trying to make money. We're going to be trying to get y'all in our community and hopefully helping y'all make some money for all these bets and all these things. We're also going to be talking through games. I mean, if you have a favorite team, we're going to be also, talking about football, and it's time for that. So come and hang out. We're going to be there hopefully 2 to 3 hours, just depending on when we think like we've done enough and we have everything figured out. But we really would hope you all get in there and ask as many questions as possible. We're going to be answering as much as we can. And yeah. So
all right, sounds good. Well, we appreciate your time, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye, y'all.